Did you see Julian's body language?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we think what we think.
Oh my goodness, if looks could kill. A lot of people have been commenting on Jagmeet's press conference that happened a few days ago, saying that the agreement is taped back together once again. However, we didn't see it that way. What is interesting is that he held another press conference yesterday with a much different tone, and we think we know exactly what happened.
Let's take a look.
Okay, my follow-up, I'm just going to double barrel this. One more foreign interference question and another question about tariff relief. So do you believe the recommendations from the Hope Commission can be implemented before the next election? So pretty simple question. Do you believe that her recommendations can be implemented before the next election? And you are calling for a meeting. So this is the question about tariff relief. You are calling for a meeting of all the parties. Should one of the discussions be all of the parties working together to extend Parliament a bit longer to give more relief, to give tariff relief to people if Trump imposes his tariffs?
Okay, well, I'll take the two questions. One is, the first question is directly, it's up to the Liberals. They could have not prorogued Parliament and we would have been able to make things happen in Parliament. They could recall Parliament. So it's really up to them if they want to take any steps to implement the recommendations of Justice Hogue. So that is up to them. We've always said our commitment is to put Canada first and to defend our democracies, to protect our country from foreign interference. So that's going to be a question in the ball of the Liberals. Are they going to do anything with this or not? On the second point, when we were in the pandemic and we were up against some serious worries about people losing their jobs, we had regular meetings where opposition leaders came together and were given information about what the next steps were, and we had to find ways to work together. We pushed for significant relief for Canadians. During that period, New Democrats were the ones that really fought for things, but really everyone came together. Similarly, if there's a plan, all the opposition leaders need to come together. There needs to be a government providing information about what the next steps are. That has not happened yet. The Liberals have not reached out. They have not brought together opposition leaders. We want to provide real supports for working people that are impacted by these tariffs who are really worried. I want to see that same initiative taken. Bring people together and let's have a plan in place.
To be clear, would you be prepared to do it with a new Liberal leader, since there will be a new one, March 9th, and moving forward with that leader on legislation to protect against foreign interference before the next election?
Really, the question still comes back to, will the Liberals have any initiative to do this? Like, if they want to do this, the recommendations are out today. There's nothing stopping them from saying, okay, we need to bring back Parliament and do something. So really, the question goes back to the Liberals. What do you want to do? Do you want to implement these changes? Are you going to implement these changes? The question really comes back to the Liberals. We do not know where they stand. We do not know if they're interested in moving forward or not. They need to answer those questions.
Okay, so a lot of people have interpreted this as Jagmeet Singh is basically opening the door. He's going back to the Liberals. He's saying, yeah, let's put it back together again. But we don't think so. And a lot of people are going to say, well, you guys are naive and you don't know.
You guys are Liberal shills.
NDP shills. Any kind
Whatever.
of shills. We call it as we see it. Okay, we call it as we see it. And we've ripped on Jagmeet I don't know how many times.
A lot.
So
not enough.
Yeah, not enough. But we are looking at this from a practical point of view, from a strategic point of view, and from a political point of view. So this is what I see. One thing that Jagmeet tried to do in that first question, and I think it was smart, his execution was poor, but it was smart for him to try to do this, is to say, listen, I'm not having any backroom meetings with the Liberals. If they want to talk about anything, you bring everybody together. I think Jagmeet at this point he's tired of getting caught with his pants down and the NDP's pants down, having separate meetings with the Liberals, because all that does is open up the party and him to continuous fire from the Bloc and the Conservatives.
Right. It's really the Conservatives saying to the voters, look at the awful job the Liberals are doing, but this guy is helping them. Do you really want to vote for either of them? Come vote for us. And that's why they have like historic highs in the polls.
So this is what Jagmeet's doing. He's trying to say, listen, we're sitting over here. We're going to be voting non-confidence. If they want to talk to us, they got to talk to all the other parties at the same time. And that's it.
No secret deals.
And how this is executed poorly is that's kind of how he left it. His intent here is to say, listen, this is all on the Liberals. This isn't on us. It's all on the Liberals.
But he worded it very poorly.
Right. And in the answer to the second question, it is much of the same thing. Because they're saying, well, would you support, reform if they go back? And again, Jagmeet is trying to say, listen, if the Liberals want to implement any of this stuff, it's up to them to do it. Some of the stuff you don't need Parliament for. But for any of the stuff that you do need Parliament for, he's trying to say, again poorly, listen, the Liberals prorogue Parliament. If this was serious to them, they should be back in the House.
Right. They could unprorogue it just as easily. Justin Trudeau could go to the Governor General and say, we need to unprorogue Parliament and address X, Y, Z, whatever. Let's do it right now instead of waiting until March.
And what he's emphasizing here is that, listen, Canadians, when it happens, and we know it's going to happen, when the new prime minister becomes prime minister and they start jumping up and down and hopping around saying, this legislation's really important and, the opposition parties need to vote for Canada. They need to pass this legislation, this supply bill, and this is going to protect workers and all this stuff. Bull crap. Because if it was that important, you'd be in Parliament now. You'd be there right now with this bill. So don't even. You guys are willing to wait another 2 months for this. And it's not the opposition parties that are waiting for it. It's you. So you can get your crap together. So you can try and put together some sort of case to shame the people who vote against you and say, look, they're not voting in the best interest of Canadians. And then you're going to go into the next election riding on that. That's what's going to happen. So this is what Jagmeet, I think, was trying to do here. Now let's continue.
We have time for one last question, and that will be Mark Ramsey with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Mr. Singh, thank you for taking our questions. Previously, you said you would vote no confidence at the earliest opportunity, but you've been saying you want a relief package for workers, and you seem to be open to working with the government and opposition leaders to do that. If opposition leaders insist on voting no confidence at the earliest opportunity, would you still support the government in passing this relief package you're calling for?
Let us be very clear. There is nothing on the table right now. There is no plan on the table right now. There is nothing presented to me. There's nothing presented to opposition leaders. In the pandemic, what happened was the government called opposition leaders together and said that these are some of the plans we want to do. In that period of time, we also pushed the government to get more done. Nothing of that sort has happened now. Nothing of that sort is on the table. I've not been reached in any way. I've maintained my position that I'll be voting against the government at the earliest opportunity. If the Liberals are serious, though, about a plan that should be put in place to support workers, call the opposition leaders together if they're serious about it. Discuss that plan with us the way we did during the pandemic. I've not seen any of that initiative. They've not shown any sort of commitment that we saw during the pandemic. None of that has been shown now. So there is nothing on the table right now. As it stands, my position remains, we will be voting against the government at the earliest convenience. If the Liberals are serious about providing more support to workers, and I think they should, then bring the opposition leaders together, present a plan. They've not done that.
Did you see Julian's body language?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we think what we think.
Oh my goodness! If looks could kill.
Yeah, rewind the video, and through these answers, look at Peter Julian. Peter Julian has daggers in his eyes, staring at Jagmeet Singh as he's answering. Okay, and this is our thought. And we go back to when Julian was saying something very contrary to Jagmeet Singh prior to his official position change, right? When Julian went on that CBC interview and was saying, oh yeah, we're we're voting down this government. And
yeah,
then,
end of February, early March, was it?
And Jagmeet was like, well, I'm not committing. All options are on the table. And then all of a sudden that night there was the emergency caucus meeting, and then something changed. So we are firmly in the camp of thinking that Peter Julian is essentially Jagmeet's babysitter at these press conferences to make sure he executes the caucus's will. And he was just staring at him this whole time like, don't you screw this up.
I thought he was going to like stare a hole in Jagmeet. Like he just, again, if looks could kill.
Yeah. And then at the end he was like, oh, I guess I better,
ease
look
up.
A little supportive here. But this is the thing, right? So Jagmeet's saying, no, we're voting. That's it. But the problem is he didn't say any of this stuff, I would say, concretely enough to make everybody believe him. Even the mainstream media, political analysts were like, oh, well, sounds like he opened himself up again. And this is the problem.
Right. I think Jagmeet was trying to play both sides. He's at some sort of press conference, trying to put something forward for workers. He's trying to, be the guy who's there for the workers, except most workers are now voting for the Conservatives because they've felt like the NDP have abandoned them by siding with the Liberals for the past 2.5 years. So he's trying to win back the support of the workers, and he's not taking a very concrete stance. He's trying to placate the group of Canadians who want an election, which is the majority right now. But he's also trying to play to this group of workers that maybe they don't want an election. Maybe Jagmeet can get them something else, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he's trying to play the fence, and he's doing a really, really bad job of it.
Well, and I think what he's referring to in terms of support for workers is non-monetary legislation. That's what I think he's talking about, because it doesn't make sense when you immediately pivot that to, well, I'm going to vote down the government at the next opportunity. Well, that would be a supply vote. Money. That's what it means.
Right, which is going to be at the end of March when they come back.
So this is kind of what we saw. So we thought it was basically a nothing burger.
Which is why we didn't do a video on it immediately.
And a couple days go by. He had another press conference yesterday. And it was very, very different. So let's take a look at that.
We'll now go to Mackenzie Gray with Global. Please go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Singh. So just to be clear, will the NDP support the government in any confidence votes past March 31st?
We have said very clearly, and I thank you for the question because I can repeat this again. We will be voting against the government when we return to Parliament end of March. We'll be voting against the government, and there will be an election in spring. But before that time, there is 2 months. So is the Liberal government proposing that we do nothing for 2 months? That these workers behind me who are worried about tariffs, if those tariffs are imposed in February, will get no support for 2 months? What would that mean to a worker that's living paycheck to paycheck? They're not going to be able to afford their mortgage, their rent. They're not going to be able to buy groceries. So is the Liberal government seriously saying they're going to do nothing for these workers for 2 months and just wait till the end of March? I think that is wrong. So I'm calling on government, if they're serious about helping out these workers, recall Parliament right away. Let's put in targeted supports for these workers and the communities impacted by these tariffs that are going to potentially happen in a couple of days. And if they do not call back Parliament, if the Liberals don't call back Parliament, then we know all of this bluster about a plan for workers was all for show. It was all fake. If they're serious, call back Parliament. As the Conservative leader has also said, call back Parliament and let's get to work for these workers.
This is very important here, folks.
I think he articulated himself a little better this time.
Jagmeet finally put on his big boy pants. And it sounds like they finally got a PR strategist with the NDP.
Maybe, maybe not.
Or maybe he just walked into caucus and everyone threw rotten tomatoes at him after the previous press conference, because this is a much different tone. So,
well, I mean, the media was going after him. The Conservatives were going after him. Alternate media was going after him, all for what he said. So I think he must have gotten in a lot of trouble with the caucus for his previous press conference. Because again, it wasn't clear. It was very flip-floppy. This time he came out of the gate and said exactly what they are planning, which is a confidence vote at the end of March, where if you remember our discussion with Andrew Scheer, they have to have a supply vote at the end of March. So that is a non-avoidable confidence vote. And that is when the NDP intends to vote down the government.
Yeah, so the Conservatives were going after Jagmeet so much that they actually set up a new website. And it's it's selloutjagmeetsing.ca. And this is what it looks like. So they have a countdown timer to when Jagmeet gets his pension. This is what price will you pay next, and it says sign a call to for the tax election. And it's not just this. There's all kinds of ads that are here for Sellout Singh, and there's a lot of information.
There's this track record on like housing and the carbon tax, and they got a lot of good information
really
on
well
here.
done.
Yeah, hats off to them.
That's really
that was very well done.
So there you go. If Jagmeet Singh, maybe he can buy that website off of the Conservatives after he's exited politics. But this is the thing, right?
You should have bought it before.
But let's actually cut through this. Now, what is Jagmeet saying here? There's actually some political strategy going on here.
Shocker.
Some legit political strategy. So what's happening? What Jagmeet is doing is he's actually saying, fine, if you really want Liberals to talk about this plan, then recall Parliament and let's go. Because, of course, he knows the Liberals would never risk recalling Parliament on this. So this is a bluff that Jagmeet knows is never going to be called.
Right. Essentially what he's saying is, Liberals, your expiry date is March the 26th. When that confidence vote comes down, we are voting you out of office. If you want to get something accomplished before that date, we're all ears. But up until that date, that's it.
Well, and it's a bluff, right? It's a firm bluff, and this is probably one of the easiest bluffs he can ever do, because there's no way Justin Trudeau is going to call back Parliament.
Right. Because they are right in the middle of a Liberal leadership race. And that was, in our opinion anyways, the whole reason why they prorogued Parliament to begin with. And the court challenge for that is coming up very quickly. It'll be on February the 13th and the 14th. So we actually intend to be in Ottawa those days to try to watch the court case. But it's coming up. It's coming up fast.
And this is the other thing that he's done here. I have yet, until this press conference, hear Jagmeet Singh agree with Pierre publicly, right? He's saying, I'm doing the same as the Conservative leader. Remember what his response was when they were, asking Jagmeet, are you going to join the Conservatives? He's like, I'm not going to play Pierre Poilievre's games, blah, 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 blah. None of that, right? None of that. So he knows that everyone is looking at him right now, including potential voters, not NDP committed voters, potential Liberal voters. He's not looking to get the Conservative voters. He's looking to get Liberal voters. So this time he was much more firm, and he was sticking to his guns. His talk about returning to Parliament actually sounded proper, because before it sounded like, well, maybe I'll think about it, maybe I won't.
Or, maybe there won't be a confidence vote at the end of March. Maybe I'll vote to prop the government up. Maybe we won't go to election till October, et cetera, et cetera. Now, he didn't say that, but because his answer was so wishy-washy in the first press conference, that's what one could take away from it. It was very, what's the word?
It was ambiguous.
It was ambiguous, but it was confusing for the viewer. It was confusing for Canadians.
Right. Which is why everyone was asking legitimate questions. So then, no doubt, he had a caucus meeting and they said, dude, you suck. Figure out your answer to this question, because this is going to be a question that's asked over and over and over and over again until until March.
Well, and I find it interesting that Jagmeet was kind of laying low since the beginning of January, where Trudeau resigned. Then he did this press conference, the first one, where he gave this wishy-washy answer. And then the very next day, he gave another press conference to make sure that he got the message right.
Yeah, so I thought that was very interesting. But there is one more thing that he said here that is very interesting.
Parliament is not set to come back until March 24th. It would be very unlikely that between that day and the end of March, the government and your party or any other parties would be able to pass any legislation to help out workers. So again, if Parliament comes back on the 24th and there is no tariff help for workers, you will vote to bring down the government at any available date past March 31st. We'd just like some clarity because your position has been moving on this issue.
Not at all. It's not changed at all. We said I was going to vote against the government when they come back end of March. I'm saying that again today. We absolutely can pass legislation. We've done it in the past. We absolutely could pass legislation if the Parliament is recalled now. We've got lots of time to get Parliament to get this passed. It can be fast tracked. It can be done. It can be done very quickly. So don't listen to any spin that suggests that we don't have time. We're in January right now. We absolutely have time to pass supports for workers. No question about it. It can be brought in Parliament, passed quickly, even passed through the Senate. Absolutely, it can be done. And it has been done before. We did it during the pandemic. So this is what I want to be very clear on. I'm concerned the Liberals are spinning people, making it seem like they care. But now I'm saying, well, do it then. If you're serious about supporting these workers, let's call Parliament back and get it done. But it does not seem to me that they're serious. It seems to me that is all for show. I want these workers to get support. So I'm calling their bluff. I'm calling the bluff of the Liberals and saying, let's get Parliament back going. Let's get supports in place. Let's make sure these workers know that we've got their back. Let's put in place legislation that supports them. Because we will be voting against the government at the end of March. We will be voting against the government at the end of March. Please ask me again, because I'll repeat that again.
You know, it's welcome news, but I think it's too little too late. You guys had the opportunity before December 10th to vote down the government, and then we wouldn't be in this mess with the prorogation and the leadership race, and we would have gone straight to an election. It would have been a January election. And I can't congratulate the NDP for taking this stance, because again, it's too little too late. You guys should have done this and avoided all this extra garbage that's going on right now.
Yeah, you missed the boat, and we're in this situation because of you.
Right. Trump was elected back in November was their election? They knew, the NDP and Jagmeet Singh knew this was coming, and they let it happen anyway, because in December they voted confidence in this government.
Yep. And who knows? We may have been going into a January Justin Trudeau leading the Liberals election.
Right.
And at that point, the NDP would have been ahead, right? Ahead.
Maybe.
One of the Abacus polls recently, right now, it has the Liberals behind the NDP by 1 seat. So you guys missed it.
I was going to say, you guys screwed up big time.
You missed it big time, man. You missed it big time. So where does this leave us? Are we going to be having a spring election? Yeah, we are still increasingly confident that we're having a spring election, because it sounds like Jagmeet is taking some PR lessons. He's finally figured out what political strategy is, and he's finally figured out that the Liberal Party is a bunch of lepers, and he needs to stay away from them and just commit to something and go with it.
Now, there's only one more situation I can think of that's actually plausible that would prevent Jagmeet Singh from voting non-confidence at the end of March. And that would be if Mark Carney wins the leadership race on March 9th, and he goes to the Governor General as Prime Minister and has her dissolve Parliament immediately, therefore removing the option from the opposition parties that they would vote non-confidence in the government. The government would just fall by the Liberals' hands, by Mark Carney's hands, and we would all go to election immediately. The reason for this would be that if Mark Carney wins, he doesn't have a seat. He cannot ask somebody to step down and run a by-election, because it is too close to the set general election date for that to happen. So we need to go to general election if Mark Carney wins as leader so that he can get a seat.